And we're back again. Just working on getting this belt tensioned here. Yep. Let's see if I can find a good place for the camera. Shit. Yep. Back again. Getting this timing belt set. I took some initial measurements the other day, but I kind of wanted to compare my various methods and get it. Oh boy, if I can find a place to put the camera. There. Wanted to compare my various methods. Jesus. And yeah, just kind of experiment around a little bit, I guess. So first thing I want to do is I want to get the tension on the proper side of the pulleys. So to do that, pull the camshaft back a little bit and then advance it back to my TDC mark on the crank pulley. So what that does is that tensions the belt between the cam and the crank, and it leaves your slack side on the tensioner side, water pump tensioner side. So this is how it would be driving, right? The crankshaft is spinning clockwise if you're standing in front of the engine. So it is pulling the camshaft clockwise. So this is going to be your side that's under tension, and this is going to be the side that's kind of just following along. So that's the direction it's going to drive in. So that's how I want to check it. The first check, the one I like the most, is just can you spin the water pump? And I can. It's very tough to spin the water pump, but that's what you want. Like, can you spin it at all? Because if you can, by hand, your tension's probably where it needs to be. Passes the first check. The second check, I guess we will do the 3D printed tool. So I'll throw that guard back on. I will get my car pokes tool on there. My torque wrench is set to 7 foot-pounds. And so start tensioning it. And what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to stop when it clicks. Zoom in. Focus. There it is. Right there. So it's closer to the used belt side than the new belt side, but it's very repeatable. So I mean, if you make a small change to the tensioner, it will adjust accordingly. You know, on so that the tool registers change. I just don't know about the calibration, you know, and maybe it's my torque wrench, maybe it's my setup, maybe it's my, you know, interference on this dowel, who knows. But either way, it's what I consider to be, you know, within the realm of what's acceptable for this tool. I think that looks good. Jesus. It's gonna be the worst video ever. You guys are gonna be barfing at your desks or couches or wherever the hell you're at. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to pull this off of here and I'm going to reset. Zoom out, okay. And so because in using that tool, I affected the tension. I mean, I'm causing it to deflect, right? So one of these pulleys moved for sure. So in order to get it back to, you know, its full tension, whatever, between the two pulleys, I'm going to rotate it back again, bring it back to TDC, and that will retension that section of belt. I'm going to remove that guy, and my third method here is the cricket. So the cricket, I'm going to get it right in here, about right there, and give it a push. You can see the pointer rising, click. So that to me looks like just under 50, and that's been pretty repeatable as well. It's supposed to be about 40. So of my 3 methods, the water pump twist method tells me I have it right where I want it. the 3D printed tool tells me I have it a little bit loose, and the Cricut tells me I have it a little bit tight. You know, like I said, I'm putting the most confidence in the water pump twist method because what does it matter? It's a rubber belt. It's on components that are going to expand with heat, and you know the belt's going to get hot and expand, and ultimately what we care about is it going to fly off? No. Is it going to prematurely wear out the bearings of the water pump? Another concern, no. Good with it. So my tensioner's locked down. Timing belt's done. So I'm going to move on to the balance shaft belt now. But you know, I think at the end of the day, people freak out about the timing belts on these things, and I get it. It is an interference motor, and you do want it set reasonably well. But shit. You know, and this is like the other method too, is like the twist method. Like, can you twist the timing belt 90 degrees? And I can probably twist it a little bit over 90 degrees. But it's fine. Happy with it. So the balance shaft belt is kind of double the fun because not only do you have an eccentric for tensioning, you also have an eccentric with a slot. So this is your primary source of tension here on the belt. And then this is kind of a follower on the longest span of the belt. I think it's primarily to keep the belt from slapping. But this you have to clearance it from the pulley below it, but then you also need to apply like 1 degree of deflection to the belt that's riding above it. So this one gets a little bit more fun, but I also think it's less critical. Balance shaft, you definitely want to err on the loose side because otherwise they howl. And I mean, they're pretty loose to begin with. But I think both of these, you're probably better off erring a little bit on the looser side than the tighter side. Okay, balance shaft belt is on. So you can see that there's a notch in the housing, the back cover. There's a notch right there, and there's a corresponding notch at the back of the pulley right there. So that tells me that the upper balance shaft is in the proper position. The crankshaft is locked at TDC. So that's 2 out of the 3. Then if we come down here, if I can get you in here properly. So you can see, well, you can't see, but if you could see, yeah, there we go. Okay, so the lower balance shaft, the notch in the pulley is lined up with the pointer that's molded into the back timing belt cover. So we're looking good. All of the tension is between the 2 balance shafts and the crank, and the slack is between the tensioner and the upper balance shaft. So that means that the slack is where it should be, so everything is properly timed. Gonna give it a couple of rotations and just make sure my marks still look good. And if they do, I'm gonna go ahead and tension it. Okay, timing belt is back on, and mosquito. Whee. Get out of here. So the tension, you know, I think is about right. This one, I'm just going by like, well, there's 90, there's, I don't know, 110. So it's pretty good and loose. Definitely looser than the timing belt. This tensioner right here, it's not even a tensioner, it's more like a follower. So this one you want a 1/2 millimeter underneath, which I did with a feeler gauge, and then you want to just be able to just barely touch this belt and have it move. I mean, just barely. So there it's slightly hovering, and there it's making contact. So that's the one with the eccentric and the slot, and it's kind of a nightmare to get it there. But as long as you tighten that center bolt just enough to where you can move it by hand, but not so much where, you know, it's too stiff to move around and get where you need it. You make your adjustments, and then just you got to be really careful holding it in place as you start to tighten it, just so it doesn't make any movements. But we're good. So from here, I mean, you know, like I said, this stuff is, they're belts. They're important belts, but they're belts. We're going to run the engine for 1,000 miles and get back in here and check them anyhow. So they're going to stretch and settle in. But ready to rock. And the last chore of the night was the boost controller, which is going to reside right there. So it uses the factory lift mount. Yeah, so boost controller's there. And then had to get the fittings on and install the, where's my flashlight? This won't work. I had to get the fittings on and plumb it through the wastegate. Here. So it's a dual port wastegate, so there is a fitting on the side as well as one on the top, and you got to make sure you plumb them properly to the regulator. So we should be good to go. Well, that's a wrap for tonight. Really from here, timing covers go back on, lower radiator hose, fill it with coolant, the charge air pipes, the air box, starter's got to go back in, accessory drive belt's got to go back on. We're kind of just down to the nickel dime from here. So, and also just give everything a good once over. I've done some stupid shit in my years of wrenching. Just forgot to tighten things or, you know, overlooked something. So if there's any takeaway from all my years of working on shit, it's that I need to double check everything that I do. So I'll make sure, you know, just make sure stuff's tight, right? So I'll do all that. And I think by the end of the next work session, we'll be firing this thing up and maybe getting it out on the road. Very close. Very excited. Can't wait. This will be the first Turbo 944 that I've driven. Other than on the test drive, I think I got it up to all of like 35 miles an hour, just around some side streets. But get this thing out on the road and see how it rips. Can't wait.